Hello. This week we are talking about melodic and harmonic intervals, and we're going to learn the difference between the two and then how to not only identify them but how to use them and write them, and then what the next step is going to be after harmonic intervals. So let's just do a quick review on intervals. We talked about them before and how intervals are the space, the distance between two notes, between two pitches, from one pitch to the next, okay? And how when you go from one pitch to the next, in like a melody, it is a melodic interval. So they're played one after the other. Harmonic intervals, on the other hand, are intervals that are played at the same time. So two notes happening at the same time is when you have harmony. So your melodic intervals are in a melody line, one note at a time. Your harmonic intervals are played or sung at the exact same time, creating a harmony, okay? So there are two ways that you can count your intervals. You can either go up the scale or up the alphabet, make sure you go in order, or you can count the distance between the line space on the staff if you'd like. So for example, if you had a C and a D, there's only two alphabet letters right there, C, D. So it's a second, okay? But and same thing with maybe if you have D and F, D, F, still a second. But if you have A and G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, it's a seventh, okay? So you start by counting the first note and then also the last note, okay? So from where it starts to where it ends. Or you can do it from line to space. So with melodic intervals, they are not on top of each other, okay? Your notes have to be spaced out, one note then the next. If they're on top of each other, that indicates that they're being played or sung at the same time. That's harmonic. Right now we're gonna work with melodic, okay? So if we have a fifth and I start on E, you can either go E, F, G, A, B, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and write it like that. Notice how they're not on top of each other, right? One note and then the next note. Let's do an octave, also known as an eighth. Very rarely called an eighth though, it's an octave. So your octave is when you have two notes that are called the same thing, but they're on different places. Another way to say it would be two notes of the same name, but of a different pitch, okay? So that's your octave or your eighth. So it's an E, which means it's gonna be the next E up, okay? You can either do from in your alphabet E to E, or you can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But we were told that it's an octave, so we know that it's gonna be the same note, just up an octave. Unison, or also could be called a one, very, very rarely. Okay, that's not common. It'd be called a unison. That's two notes that are the same. They're the same note name and the same pitch. So they would be right next to each other. One note, then the next. That's a unison. Also, if you were not talking about melodic intervals, and if you were just talking about how the melody was built on steps, skips, and repeats, there's your repeat. So your repeat is your unison, okay? And then a second is just the next note up. So we've got an F here, so if we did it alphabetically, F, G, or if we did it by counting, your first note counts, 1, 2. So it's on that next line. Notice how they're not touching. If your second is touching and the notes are right next to each other, right on top of each other, then they're harmonic and they're being played at the same time, but those ones are not. All right, let's go ahead and move on to harmonic. A fifth. We've already done a fifth, right? So let's do it here. Right now we're on an F. F, G, A, B, C. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Harmonic, played or sung at the same time. Notes drawn right on top of each other. Okay, that will tell your piano player, your singers, your band, all the things that it happens at the same time. Okay, a fourth, F, G, A, B. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're not quite seeing how I'm counting it, I go from the space to the line to the space to the line. You don't skip any of them. Space, line, space, line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And again, right on top of each other. They are articulated at the same time. Here's a second. It's on a G. G, A. 1, 2. They need to be touching like that. You can't put those two directly on top of each other because the way music is notated, if they're directly on top of each other, it would be a space and a space or a line and a line. But when it's a space to the very next line or a line to the very next space, it's kind of off center, but they still need to be touching, okay? So here's a good example of the third. So you've got it from the line to the line. So E, E, F, G, or 1, 2, 3. If you were to see a third drawn on paper, you would see that they are right on top of each other. Let me see if I've got a good example. So on your harmonic intervals theory builders page, you'll see the thirds right there and how the notes, they are touching because they're close enough, but it's a line to a line. And there's your example of a second, okay? So that's drawn a little bit differently than how I did it here. My staff lines are just spread out a little bit more. All right, and then we can do a sixth, okay? So we're on an A, B, C, D, E, F, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, harmonic intervals right on top of each other because they're played at the same time. Don't let that trick you because you've got a page where you're writing harmonic intervals, you have a page where you're writing melodic intervals, and there is a difference in how they're notated, right? Because melodic is one note after the other. It is in a melody. They don't happen at the same time. Harmonic intervals do happen at the same time. They create that beautiful harmony. The next step after learning melodic and harmonic intervals is going to be chords and learning chordal changes and chord structure. Your harmonic intervals are the building blocks for harmony, and 2 or more harmonic intervals combined form a chord. A chord is a combination of 3 or more tones played at the same time. Okay, you hear a lot of chords happening in piano, the accompaniments, and then also in worship music. Your keys person, I'm sorry, my hair is driving me crazy. Your keys person will play full chords, so they're playing 3 or more notes simultaneously, all at the same time. Okay? All right. I believe this is all you're going to need to know. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.